All right. Don't forget to like the video. Little freewheel today, guys. Little freewheel. Like 90 degrees out. Got to bring a sample from the pool to the pool place, you know. Oh. Got my Under Armour going. Thanks, baby. Yes, sir. And we're going to freewheel a little bit today about messaging, tariffs, and taxes. That's what we're going to do. Clearly, the memo went out. All right, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Public Polling Project is doing well this week, or did do well this week. Let's keep that momentum up. Contribute what you can, share it far and wide. All right, it's all about tariffs and taxes today, really, because it's like tariffs is a tax, right? And I remember every time I come to a news cycle like this, I remember Professor Ziegler, and he had written a book, all right? And the book was about inaccurate historical comparisons used in politics, okay? And I mean, his whole class was about his book. It was a fantastic class. And it stuck with me all these years later because you will, once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it. The use of historical inaccuracies to make a political point or score political points or argue for or against, because sometimes you're arguing for something, sometimes you're arguing against something. All right. And for the last 24 hours or so, that has been the case. And it's come, by the way, obviously mostly from the left, but it's come from some Republicans on the right. And it was ironic because I had a call yesterday with whom I can't get into, but I had a call yesterday about groups interested in the Republican Senate not being representative and the vote or the action they took on the tariff, which was a meaningless action, right? Was such a perfect time to have this discussion. And of course, what to do about it. And every case is different. Whether you're talking about somebody like a Tom Tillis in North Carolina or a Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. You know, Susan Collins is different. She's in Maine. It's different. I would argue the more Trumpy you get, the better chance in the long run you have of winning the state of Maine if you are a Republican. In the short term, you may lose, but in the long term, you're going to win. If you don't and you stay the party of Lindsey Graham, for instance, is another one in South Carolina, you will not only lose a state like Maine, I mean, in the long term, but you will lose, and that was part of the conversation, states all over the South are going to become in jeopardy for Republicans if they keep this up. All right, so there's also some polling. We've done a lot of polling over the years, and on tariffs. And what's interesting is how infrequent we see major shifts, okay? It's actually quite remarkable. If I go to, for instance, a poll I conducted in August of 2020 for the Epoch Times, you'll see that we asked about tariffs. If you fast forward 2 years, and by the way, one of those polls, there were two polls we did for the Epoch Times later. We did the Rust Belt poll period, right? Yeah. And in the Rust Belt poll, by the way, we also asked about tariffs because that was a conversation at that point. And then if you fast forward to asking about tariffs in the year 2022, you're not seeing that much of a change as long as, of course, you keep the wording consistent and you don't fudge the wording of the question to make it something that it is not. And for instance, we have always asked about tariffs in the following way. Do you support or oppose the use of tariffs as leverage in trade negotiations? Okay. And when you ask like that, you're going to get a very different answer. And I can actually show you by party how that comes down, because that is something that actually, it's like the top level number has not changed all that much, despite what you have seen from other pollsters. But what's causing that top line number is starting to change, even though certain things we always saw. For instance, if you're working class, by race, there was less of a disparity in support for the use of tariffs as a trade negotiation, especially in the Midwest. Now, that's never usually the case. So that would always give that question a little bit of bipartisan support. Now, what we're seeing is that you have some independents who are right-leaning independents. They're rhinos for sure. I mean, or I shouldn't say that. The people themselves aren't. But I would say they're more educated Republicans in urban areas, or suburban, urban. And they are now more firmly breaking away, while support for tariffs is getting support from other groups, more so non-white, working class, more so once upon a time Democrats, ancestral voting Democrats, and then of course independents who were like working class independents who would vote for, like, think of the independent who's a working class person who voted for Barack Obama, male, woman, black, white, whatever, that independent. And so while Republicans lose some of their own self-identified Republican, the Senate, the U.S. Senate, taking an action like it did the other day, it does not reflect the plurality or the majority, depending on the poll, nor does it reflect the overall base of the party. So it leaves them out there. All right. Now, tariffs, I would expect, if prices go up dramatically on things, which I don't expect that to be widespread, but prices are going to go up, then they will become less popular, and we will see from there. But as of right now, the media's narrative itself isn't really harming tariffs in the way that I think they would have expected it to harm them. All right. But all of that aside, that's the impact of public opinion. That's the public opinion side of it. And why does this matter? Because these historical inaccuracies that I referred to before are being used to try to persuade or shift public opinion. Okay? So, for instance, here's a talking point that not only I recognized as a talking point, but our buddy Jason over at Qantas, you could see he responds to it. I don't. I think I quote tweeted it or something, but I'm not going in the thread and going having a back and forth on this. But the fact of the matter is, it's simply false. So if we look at, we tried mass tariffs in 1828 and it crashed the economy. We tried again in 1930 and it crashed the economy. That's not true. Those are inaccurate historical analogies. And then there are a few types of them, by the way. Sometimes they're just true, or at least it's debatable. You could argue they're true, but it's not the proper application in this specific instance. Both are the case when it comes to these tariffs. Both. All right. They're not true, nor are they accurate. I wouldn't even say, nor are they appropriately applied to what Trump is doing right now. And there's also this idea that, I mean, this is one argument that we're seeing a lot of. And then the other one is, but it's not just what he says it is, because he's hurting little countries. These are people who don't know how the world works, how imports and exports work, that people use various countries as third-party exporters to ship everything from guns to a bowl of rice. Okay, so, or a bag of rice, I should say. They do it, though, because they're paying those workers in those third world impoverished nations, or third party nation, really is said. They're paying them a bowl of rice to do it, and then skirting the tariff, or they're skirting the sanction. Okay. Gun runners do it all the time. Okay, they do. During the Iraq War, there was a trade embargo on the nation that makes Beretta. Okay, so companies were moving Berettas around and going through crazy third-party countries in order to do so, because they could not get a permit to ship it through in Western allied countries. Okay, right. All right, so This is let's take the first one. Okay. In this case, and actually, you know what, Jay? I think I am going to use your thing because I want to talk about what Josh said actually, but I think it's good to click on both. Let's click on both. It's a Freewheeling Friday. Let's click on both, baby. Okay, this is what Jay said first. I've seen this same tweet from different accounts several times over the past couple of days. Me too. That is the Brookings Institute. Let me explain to you how this works especially for Democrats and for fake Republicans like the Lincoln Project, the pedophile project. Okay. They are getting a memo from the Brookings Institute or somebody like David Brock or both. They work together. And they are getting their talking points from them. And everyone who's got a PAC, who has a social media profile, who's got a press release section on their website in politics, by the way, and certainly who goes on the different news programs. And they all parrot the same thing. And you can see, and they're being fed that by places like the Brookings Institute. And, Media Matters once upon a time used to run a lot of that shit. But that's why I said David Brock, because actually David Brock had been doing that until relatively recent. Okay. All right. So, bottom line, this is what he said. I've seen it around, so have I. Despite its volume, it remains wrong. That's true. The 1828 tariff didn't crash the economy. It sparked a political crisis, not a financial one. Right. These are people who are basically getting, and even if they knew they were wrong and lying, they wouldn't care. They would still put it out. Okay. But they don't know their history. They don't know it well. And so they're putting it out, think, oh, this is good stuff. That is not, in fact, what crashed the economy in 1828. And by the way, if you read Our Virtuous Republic, you'll learn about that and other economic crashes that were used, as Robert Higgs said, as crisis and Leviathan moments to then further the growth of government. And once that happens, even when the crisis is over, the size and scope of government in its post-crisis form, even if it recedes, it will never recede back to the level it was before the crisis. That is the crisis and the Leviathan. So if you plot it on a map, it'll look like the Dow Jones Industrial Average even before the Great Depression. Meaning a steady, erratic, but in some ways very consistent. Because even though there are downturns, it is a steady increase in the share of gross domestic product. The market share of the public sector, you could say. All right. The 1930 Smoot-Hawley Act didn't cause the Great Recession. It worsened an already crashing global economy. History isn't a meme. Try reading it. Ooh. Burn. Good job, guys, because that's actually true. Now, he's not getting into specifics, but it is true. Let's look at what Josh Barnett wrote, because he wrote a big old paragraph. 3. There was a sharp distinction between the tariffs in 1828 and 1930 versus today's approach. This is the issue I have with it as well. That even if what the Lincoln Project and many, many others are parroting, this is the talking point. Even if it was true, that it wouldn't, yes. So let's say that it's agreed upon that the tariffs resulted in those crashes. Even if that was the case, and it is not at all, they're just coming up with this at this point, it still would be an inaccurate historical analogy, because its application to these tariffs it's like saying two words are synonymous, people, but they're not. It's the approach. And I see your point. The context, intent, and structure do look different. The tariff of 1828 was about naked regional favoritism, propping up northern factories while screwing southern exporters. While the Smoot-Hawley in 1930 was a blunt, desperate grab to shield U.S. industries amid a spiraling depression. with little thought to global failure. Both lacked a clear endgame beyond protectionism for its own stake. And I want to stop there real quick because, in truth, we always pine on about free market capitalism and this and that in this country, and the founders were free market capitalists. They were free market capitalists at home. Many were protectionists, mercantilists when it came to abroad. This is a domestic dispute. Today's what they're referring to in 1828. That is a political dispute. He's talking about the use of tariffs to do a few things. Get a better position on trade deals and to basically mitigate the trade imbalance. If you were listening to White House press secretary, what was it? It was Tuesday, I believe it was, rattling off tariffs from China, even our so-called Western allies, enormous percentage tariffs, 700, 800, 900%. This is in part aimed to mitigate the trade deficits because we are at an unfair advantage. And by the way, let's see if we can get to Barnes's, but Barnes made a great point too, which has to do with tax. It's the same thing. All of these people who are going on and on about tariffs are also the people who acknowledge and go on about tax avoidance behavior. You can't have taxes too high, otherwise corporations will just engage in tax avoidance behavior. I'm not saying that's not true. It is true. And for something like the corporate tax rate specifically, there's a Goldilocks zone. Too low and you will not raise revenue. Too high and you will not raise revenue. If you get it in the Goldilocks zone, you not only create more revenue or a maximum amount of revenue to the treasury, could be estimated, the best it could be estimated, but you're also in the right Goldilocks zone, not even encouraging, because it's not an encouragement. You're resulting in higher wages for those employees. I know people don't like to hear that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to them, but believe me, there is now some 60 years of data from developed nations. Because when we first wrote this, that was 50 years. It's now 5. Excuse me. That's another almost 10 years. It's about 58 years we were able to find data from, by the way, left-wing sources. The OECD, which is a fanatically left-wing, the Office of Economic the OECD, the Office of blah, 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 blah. I can't even remember at this point. It's a Paris-based, fanatically left-wing. It is not a right-wing source like the Cato Institute or the American Enterprise Institute. The WTO. In developed nations, we know that's to be the case, but they don't believe that people can people can engage in tariff avoiding behavior the way that they engage in tax avoidance. Great tweet, Robert, by the way. Today's reciprocal tariffs, like Trump's April 2025 plan with a 10% baseline, 54% on China, etc., are framed differently. They're pitched as a bargaining chip, a response to perceived trade imbalances, and a way to force fairer deals. So, if a pollster is going to go into the field and ask about whether or not voters support or oppose these tariffs, how should the pollster frame it? It is the framing of several of these questions valid if that's what it really is. If that's the approach here. The idea of leveling the playing field suggests a strategic goal, pressuring countries to drop their own barriers to subsidies, potentially leading to fewer tariffs overall if they comply. Right. Here is a way to avoid the tariff. That's a stark contrast to the 1828 sectional pork or the 1930s across the board panic move. Very different. This is an inaccurate historical analogy. Reciprocity implies a tit for tat dynamic, not just unilateral wall building. Evidence backs the shift in approach. The White House has explicitly tied these tariffs to countering China's 25 to 100% duties on U.S. goods, India's 20 to 30 average tariffs, and these are average, by the way. There are some tariffed goods upwards of almost 1,000%. It's insane. And the EU's 10 to 20 barriers. Trump even floated secondary tariffs, 25 to 50%, on nations buying Russian oil. Okay. So now I'm starting to wonder if this is the real reason for the panic, because the truth of the matter is all of our Western elites gave Ukraine money in the form under the guise of assistance, right? Whether it's military or economic, and it all came with a clause, which was to develop the shale deposits in eastern Ukraine. This is why they cannot stand Russia, by the way. It is because rich families from all over the Western world, to include the Bidens, were the benefactors or the recipients. They were the recipients of the tax dollars that were used to prop up those energy sector efforts in Ukraine. Yet, while they call Putin the boogeyman, other nations that are supposed to be our friends, other nations that call for sanctions in the first place, other nations that have a national, or I would say a vital security threat from Russia, because we do not, because we are an insular power separated by two weaker forces on both sides and two oceans on the other. Another example of an insular power would be Great Britain, who is surrounded, of course, by water on every side. There is no great power bordering their nation. They are an insular power. So we don't have that. And yet, these people buy oil from Vladimir Putin. They have both hands in the cookie jar, and nobody ever does anything about it. One of the most effective things outside of tariffs that Trump did to end this was end the exemptions when it came to Iran and other countries dealt with Russia, where the U.S. will give, I guess this is like a hall pass or something in NATO, but all the NATO countries will have to abide by because they're the ones asking for it in the first place. They get essentially a waiver. You don't have to follow the sanctions. You can go ahead and buy oil from Iran. You can go ahead and buy oil from Putin. So the sanctions never work. They honestly, in some cases, do nothing but target weaker people in the society who can't really do anything about it. They are basically innocent bystanders. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good idea, or I even don't support it, because at the end of the day, that is the point. You're hurting the population. You're giving them pain so their government reacts, because they'll force their government to react if they feel enough pain. But in some instances, it's just not worth it. In any event, they're doing this, and Biden comes back in. He removes all of those. What it's kind of funny. It's like a double speak here, but Trump is removing those exemptions, and then Biden comes in and removes his order, removing those exemptions. What was the result, by the way? Let's see. Our European allies were buying oil from a guy we were then who was taking our money and using it to kill NATO troops. These are not smart people. I mean, many of them actually probably are. They just care more about the money and the power than anything. They just don't care. But you had our friends literally funding Vladimir Putin's shells that would land on NATO-trained troops. In Iran, because those exemptions were removed, Iran was able to amass billions of dollars back after being forced, dragged, kicking and screaming to an all-time low on Iranian oil exports. All-time low revenue from those exports. But Biden comes in and rescues them. And what did Iran use that money for? Did they use it to get the single mother and child a better roof over their head, or, a card for food stamps, or to improve their healthcare system, or to put their veterans in a home, get them proper care, whatever it may be? Did they do anything with that money that benefited the Iranian people? Absolutely not. They took it and they invaded Israel and raped women and killed children. Well, was Hamas rich? Right. And Iran, of course, funds all their shit. Trump's even floated these secondary tariffs, contingent on Ukraine ceasefire talks, which is great. Conditional, not permanent. This isn't 1828 static favoritism or 1930s blind escalation. It's more a high stakes negotiation tactic. That's exactly what it is. The exemptions, Russia, Cuba, also show some calibration, unlike the blanket policies of the past. Right. I mean, the bottom line is what he is using as an example is just not historically accurate. Whoops, got the wrong thing here. It isn't accurate, and it's not appropriate to apply those decisions and those historical events, policies to what is going on now. It's different. It's like saying another one of these which is great. Trump met with Kim Jong-un. This was a Munich moment, and Trump was Chamberlain. Was he? Did Kim Jong-un decide that he's going to act like Adolf Hitler and invade South Korea? No, he did not. But they didn't stop them from using those analogies, which they've been using forever, because they do help their message, or at least that's the goal. They want to help the message that they're trying to get across. Let me just share screens. Let's go back a hot minute before we get other tweets, which we will. All right, I just want to show this on the board real quick. I know it's very difficult to see. You can see this is the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt poll, as a recap, includes Iowa, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. It is representative of the total vote in that region among those states, meaning Iowa represents, or is weighted down to, because what really happens is we collect every state and then we weight them to their appropriate amounts. Iowa represents about 7 to 8% of that vote out of those 6 states. A state like Minnesota, about 12.5%, let's call it 13%. And then as you get higher and higher up on the list, ending with a state like Pennsylvania, and Ohio is pretty big too. Did I miss Ohio in this poll? Yeah, because Ohio is in the Rust Belt poll. You're talking about, yeah, it is. Iowa, Ohio. I don't think I missed it, did I? I don't think so. In any event, you get the picture. Do you support or oppose the use of tariffs in trade negotiations with other nations? As you can see, it is the most high in rural America. Support for it. It's only about 1 point 1 point difference between the support levels in urban and suburban America. That's it. And shit, even among suburbanites, it's only 6 points away from the support level in rural America. So, as you can see here, overall, this is like a 2-to-1. It's not like it is a 2-to-1 support, with a ton of people saying that they're unsure. But every time we poll these questions, and again, it's very, very, very important to stay consistent with the question. Every time we do, we get roughly the same damn margin. Maybe next month, and this is the Rust Belt only. Maybe next month, I bet you if we polled it again, the Rust Belt would be even higher today. Why? Because I'm not taking a hunch. I know that that's the case. I could see a pollster make this question, put this question on the questionnaire, and then I could even see them saying something like, would you still, if the price of, let's say, automobiles rose by another 2.5%, whatever it may be? That's fair. But initially asking them the question in the way that people I've seen these pollsters ask is not accurate. I think Josh is right here. At the core of it, this is a negotiating tactic. Does he want the trade deficit balance? I mean, well, erased. If it's balanced, it's erased. Of course he does. But the idea is to do much, much more than that. Trade, other economic things we may not have in mind that he may have asked him for. Right? All right. What time is it? 2:34. Maybe you can get to some of these already. Let me just show you my party real quick. This has changed. Okay. So as you can see here, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of Democrats who support it. But the number of Democrats that is being packed into the independent number who then support this are pushing independents higher, even as Democrats have come back down to planet Earth. Actually, they're not. If planet Earth is like where the general consensus is, then they're not on planet Earth. What I mean is they came back down to a level you would expect from partisans who may know enough about the news cycle to know he's asking something about the Republican president. So no, I don't support it. I oppose it. We're seeing more of that. All right. I'm actually curious if back then. Yeah, look. Oh my God. Whew. Back then you can actually see that educated people actually supported them more. I don't think that's the case anymore. I can go and look. We can look together, but I don't think that's the case. All right. Let's see. Can I find that thing from Robert? Oh, good old Robert. Let me see. Bear with me 1 second here, guys. Loaded. Let me get a drink of water. Yeah, I mean, look at Tom V. Rotna. Trump's new tariffs aren't a trade tweak. They're the first move in a full spectrum reset. 9.2 trillion in debt matures in 2025. Inflation lingers. Alliances are shifting. One announcement just set a dozen wheels in motion. Here's what's really happening and why. And we don't have to go into all of his stuff. Kurt Schlichter said, tell you what, Trump certainly has balls. No other Republican president would be able to do this, Kurt. None of them. Because they're donors. There's no chance they would be able to do this. Trump can do it because he can do it. Because if a donor doesn't like it, he'll say tough shit and he'll move on. If some economic advisor tells him, no, don't do it, it's a bad idea, he doesn't care. But of course, that's not the case. He's got Peter Navarro going, do it, boss, do it! Pull the trigger! The proverbial trigger. You got to qualify everything you say these days, folks. David Giglio said, so let me get this straight. Every country in the world is allowed to put tariffs on America, but we aren't permitted to retaliate. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And that's because of the globalist worldview, which believes the following. The source, because this is the origin of their thinking, the source of global conflict that led to two absolutely devastating wars. And then, of course, they had the Cold War to keep them busy. The source of that conflict is that Americans have not sufficiently exported their own wealth. They don't ever want to do it to themselves. They want to do it to your wealth. And that if all of these countries around the globe were more economically stable. If they had more money, then they wouldn't war as much. And that's where this old concept. Oh, and by the way, in exchange for like US political elites doing that and selling off American wealth, American jobs, in exchange for that, they are expecting people in their country to do the same. If they do not, like a Viktor Orban, they will become a target. That's it. So they're basically agreeing to rape and pillage each other's countries, and they'll just skate. They'll hide behind their gates when it all comes crashing down. Think their gates would save them? Better be some big ass gates. All right. 240, 240, 240. Already? What? No way. It is. Okay. Well, that certainly sucks. Let's go to locals. Oh, man, this is long, man. Whoa, what is that? Spartacus? Is that me? Is Spartacus? What? That's me as Spartacus, isn't it? Nice. Nice. Although I don't have a boundless ego. Come on. It's clearly got some boundaries. Everybody's got an ego. How big is it is the question. I try to keep mine to a minimum though, because eventually you're going to be wrong, and then when you are, if it's going to hurt your ego, it's going to be a big problem. You know what I mean? All right. Let's get to some of them though, because we are getting up on stuff fast here. Libertarian. Ooh, libertarian comment here, huh? Mm-hmm. Thanks for the tip on locals, by the way. 100% on board with tariffs, but the Trump team isn't doing great on messaging. Saw Vance answer some questions on it, and he was very articulate, but I'm afraid he didn't get a lot of coverage. The White House needs to roll Vance or someone else out who is articulate for the next 2 weeks to hammer the home message. I think that Jack Posobiec and I did them a solid coming up with a freebie on how to sell this and saying it on air. Crickets. Listen. It's the sound of nothing. Less than crickets. That's the reply either one of us ever got about it. The White House is not doing a good job on messaging. They're not. It's like the sooner you come to accept it, the better. I mean, I don't know what else to say to that, lol. You know? Lol. Love it. Funny name. Creative. Lol. Libertarian. I got a quick question, if you don't mind. Put it in the chat. I'll see if I can see it. Were you a libertarian before? And you got fed up? Because I got to tell you, the libertarian vote is nothing now compared to what it was. Hell, I think somebody like a Jill Stein has more of a chance to motivate the green vote than any libertarian candidate has to motivate their vote at this point. I really do believe that. I'd share the Spartacus photo with you guys, but it is kind of crazy. Yeah, actually, you guys want to see it? Oh my God, that's so funny. You transposed my face and made me look older. That's crazy. Crazy. Let's do it. I'll show it to you. This is nuts. Where is it? Where is it? That's it. I got it in both spots. Let me see. Let's go to the JPEG version, right? Yeah. Yeah. I got it. Check this out. I'll tell you what, boy. Andrew, I wish my abs looked like that still. Damn. I got what the dance moms say is dad bod. And dad bods are in. But I sure as hell don't have no Spartacus six-pack anymore. That's funny as hell, Andrew. And I tip my hat to you. That's hilarious. Even with the aging, like I look like, it's cool. That's probably what you're seeing, folks, is a recreated using the latest software image of what a real Italian, a real Roman. He wasn't even Roman though, right, Spartacus? He was something else. He was like a Greek tribe, right? Anybody know that? Spartacus was not Roman. Yeah. I don't know. If you guys know it, throw it in there because I'm curious. That's a good question. That's really, one hell of a meme, brother. You got to tell me what you used to do that one day. All right. So Red Diver says, regarding representation, we are going to start holding the Rand Pauls and the Masseys responsible for being unskilled politicians. I know Lindsey Graham is a neocon scumbag, but when he meaningfully defied Trump? Here's the problem. The majorities are too small. For which, Rich? For both. What are you going to do about them? I don't know. It's tough. You're not going to primary Massey, Red Diver, there's no one who's going to be able to beat Massey in that district. He has carved out this niche for himself. And obviously, as you can see, his state, Paul's state, same thing. Huge deference. Yeah. Huge deference among voters in their state. If they were truly principled, they would set aside their pride, play the game better, allow them to have a much bigger voice in the actual administration. Yeah, but we saw this in Trump's first administration too. The Republican Party promises to repeal and replace Obamacare for, by that time, going on more than, let's call it 10 years, right? They won that. Yep. They had a romping midterm, a low turnout midterm, but they had a romping midterm in 2010, right? Yeah. Ooh, this is good though. It's just not going to happen right now. It's not. And by the way, in their states, this doesn't apply to Massey, but it does apply to Rand Paul. In their state, there's no way to, even if you had the motivation to get rid of Rand Paul, there's nothing you can do about them right now. And there's no money that anyone will give you to try to take them on. I just don't see it. Now, in other states, there is. Oh, I'd like your thoughts on the Ancestral Democratic voter Marty I've known for 22 years, 5 miles outside of Punxsutawney. Woo! Punxsutawney Phil, baby. For those who don't know, that's the groundhog. Me and my shadow. Come on. Jack Frost. Of course you guys know that. Come on now. I'd hang out there sometimes and help him out with my dad as he's a farm equipment mechanic. Oh, I get it. Am I supposed to skip on this or no? Legal establishment and Rockefeller Republicans would look down on him and think he's simple or stupid, but he's got more sense than any of them and could run a business better than all of them together. Oof. That's good stuff. I'll tell you, man, Andrew, I know a lot of people who are educated, so-called educated, college, and they're incredibly stupid. I know some people who are not, and they are incredibly smart. But you're right. And especially since education became such a big talking point in our media, that is, what they've been running on. Yeah. And it works. He's never going to vote for somebody like that. Marty see right through any tough on crime bullshit or culture war nonsense. It doesn't mean he'll actively choose it, and it doesn't, I guess you mean there, right? It doesn't mean he supports the Dems, right? But if you come from a family, right, that has for many, many years, it's almost a source of pride. And among certain ethnic Catholics, for instance, that was the case for a while until it wasn't anymore. But it doesn't mean he'll support them. I think you mean, oh no, you wrote Dem. Doesn't mean he supports the Dem. Right, but this is what you say to that person. But you are, aren't you? By not, let's say he doesn't go out and cast a vote for the Democrat and whatever race it may be. Let's use Massey's as a race right now, right? It doesn't mean he's support, or actually, I mean, Massey's a bad idea because not a country clubber. Well, but the point is that if you don't vote yourself, Andrew, are you not still giving the other person support? Or at least the illusion that they have more support than they do. Which gets contagious, by the way, and becomes very difficult to change. He'll hate, I think he means mine. He'll hate Eurobulls and he'll hoot about voting for Trump and vote for the Dem despite you because Marty thinks you're going to betray him. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that's part of that. So let's say they're in one of those ancestral Democrat voting neighborhoods in New York as you're coming over the Jersey border, right? It's not urban yet. It's not. Well, I'm reading too much ahead of time here. You have so many up here, Andrew. I'm trying to read and answer them as they're coming down, but I'm trying to see if they all connect at the end so I don't have to repeat where I'm going with this. Let me just read full and then I'll repeat, okay? Then I'll take them either in totality, but I'm going to read the whole thing first because I'm even getting a little bit lost here. I just think that we have to appreciate, let me tell you before I finish it because I see where you're going. My grandfather, my wife's grandfather, they had Democratic Union cards. Like I'm literally a card carrying member of the Democratic Party as ethnic Catholics, as ethnic Italian Catholics. Super, super proud of that. So if we still lived in that current environment and our family didn't undergo political maturation, that would still weigh. So let's say you find a Rockefeller Republican running against these Dems, to bad management of the state, whatever it may be. You know you're not going to be totally, yeah. I mean you get what I'm saying, but psych. What does that mean? Marty wants to know, how are you going to protect him and keep the government water quality in check? Because right, so he's going to go with the devil he knows, right? Yeah, that's where you're going with this. All right, that's a simple way to do it. I'm over here coming up with all these examples and stuff, but the most simple way to say this is that you're going to go with the devil you know. My grandfather, my wife's grandfather, I think probably the only Republican they ever would have voted for was like a Ronald Reagan, and did vote for. Outside of that, they're going to go with the devil that they know. I'd let you take it from here and run your mouth so you tattle on, get in trouble with the donor police. But why Trump actually campaigns on these issues? Because he actually wants to make Marty's life better and protect him from rogue government and corporate actors. Unless you've lived it in like Marty, you or I, how would they know what his needs are? Oh, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, the answer is to have somebody like me around who knows these people and understands these people, not to be in your establishment bubble. I mean, it's really that simple. It really is. Truthfully, it is. All right, let's go back to some of those. Last, Dems rely on this so much, and I don't know why it's such taboo to mention. At least they sometimes protect people like Marty from police or corporate or corporate corruption, and they protect fellow Dems. That last part I think is really important, but I would also say this too, even if they're not doing that, and I would argue they're not anymore. They're not protecting the working man or woman. They're not protecting the little guy. They're a corporatist party, which is a nice fancy new word for fascism, an elitist corporatist party. So I don't agree, but they still think that because that's all part of the ancestral connection. They still remember. Remember, not Wolf of Wall Street. Do you remember the original movie Wall Street, Andrew? Do you remember how his dad was a union guy? He's a spokesman for the union guy. They still think that's the case, right? So he was going to Wall Street, he was going to hang out with Gordon Gekko, and it was like big, bad Republicans trying to make as much greed as good. It was a working class hero movie. The dad was a Democrat. So it's the perception that still matters. And to them, if they have those roots, it's hard for me to explain it to somebody who doesn't have them. I'm sure you have yours, right? A pattern is emerging. You hop in here, provide takes so people can prepare for months in advance. Tell the spicy reality. Chink donors and consultants, massive egos. Cue the texts or donors calling you to tell you all about just somebody's conservative bona fides. So you're going to call this phenomenon now the Pundit Patrol because they'll come to you every time these Nobel laureates are out of line, and you can tell them to fall in. Did you watch Viva Fry, my interview with Viva Fry the other day, Mark Robert, the three of us? I mean, this is now consistently happening a lot. What are we calling it? The Pundit Patrol? Oh, I like that a lot. Might give us more credit than we deserve, but I'll take it. I will take it. And Diver says, "Oh, wait, I'm skipping some. Sorry." And YouTube, don't get me wrong, I'll be there. There's just a lot added up. The West wasn't ready for a realignment of a multipolar world with the US, Russia, and China dominating. Europe overvalued their position. I totally agree. In fact, they called it the end of history. And that's from Son of a Mitch 824. Like that creative name. I totally agree. They were calling it the end of history, right? In the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union. 10 years later, Putin makes it strong. They just can't bear the idea of sharing their world that they expected with reality. It's a really good point. They were not ready for this. Europe has always been weak. I'm sorry. It's true. They've always been weak. They were never going to, take something like Hitler, for instance. Obviously, the guy ramped up. All right. What? Oh, wow. What a question. There's different answers based on the different candidates, Jerry, but let's try it. Why has it been so hard for reps to win Senate races in Arizona? Even in 2020, Trump only lost by 0.3%, whereas they lost by 2 to 5 for nearly a decade. Doesn't matter if it's a Rhino, McSally, a Trumpish Lake, or Blake. First and foremost, they withheld money and support from Kerry Lake. They did. Blake Masters was grossly outspent. They didn't withhold money, but he didn't get big money except for a few places. But putting aside the fact that you get handicapped to run a race, I think it also underscores a bit about what we've been talking so much about, the realignment. For instance, the independent, moderate to conservative male between the age of 30 to 45 in the state of Arizona went for Trump by 30 points in 2020. It went for Trump by 36 points in 2024. Yet McSally basically split them with Mark Kelly. I don't know what Lake did. I'd have to go look it up, but I just remember that by heart. I remember it because I remember a polling and going, no way. No way. So, I mean, the first thing has to be a the first thing has to be a recognition that the state is changing and they're playing games instead of recognizing that. So you get a Trumpish candidate like Lake, who did exceptionally well with Hispanics when she was running for governor in 2022. You get a candidate like her, they leave her to hang out to dry. And the party gets nowhere overall. McSally, I kind of blame on Trump. Kelly Ward, I've known her for years, actually. Years. Well before she was the chairwoman of the Arizona GOP. And no matter what you may find in her faults, she's legit. She's the real deal. They wanted McSally. They pushed her out. The money dried up, even though the grassroots wanted Kelly Ward. They ignored the grassroots, and she lost anyway. Anyway, Jeff Flake. I mean, for that matter, Jeff Flake, when Trump pretty much easily carried Arizona in 2016, it was closer than it was in 24, but Jeff Flake barely held on. The presidential race had been called. Jeff Flake was not called for hours and hours and hours and hours. For those who don't know, Jeff Flake was a rhino who, yeah, I mean, that's it. He's a rhino. Hot, neither cold, lukewarm, always trying to ride the fence. And he's still barely skirted by. It's not because of Trump and politics and I don't like the taste in my mouth it gives to me anymore, and not realizing how bad that kind of stuff sounds. But he always tried to ride the fence and he couldn't. So that's why he ended up giving up, not because the Trump era was coming into full swing and he didn't like Trump's mouth. That's ridiculous. He was avoiding being humiliated. I'm getting to your clarity, Diver. I'm getting there. It's already, oh my God, it's already 3 o'clock. All right, I gotta get there quicker, I guess. Okay. Just to be clear, I don't want Massey or Paul to be primaried. I like them both. Some sort of pressure should be put on them to be better politicians. I agree with that. Metaphorically, they're both, batting 270, average 270, and they could easily be hitting above 300. Okay. I wanted to tell this story because I trust you like how, like Mark. Wait a minute. I wanted to tell you this story because he'll trust you. I think people like Marty would vote in the North Carolina primary for Senate. You got that. I understood these contradictions to Marty. This is why Supreme Court race was lost. That group. Oh, yeah, man. Absolutely. I don't want to rehash this, but if you missed it, Wednesday's show, which was like an update video, but you can, if you're a YouTube member or a local supporter, you can watch it. This was not a turnout issue. Of course, turnout would have helped to mitigate some of that. But the real issue was that there's a group of voters that truly are still swing voters. And they vote for Trump. They may not vote at all, or maybe even vote for a Democrat when they don't have another option. All right. So you're right. That is why. Oh, the pundit control thing. I can use it? Cool. Has this been up the whole damn time? That's been up the whole time? I thought I was putting the things on the screen. I was putting the things on the screen. There you go. There you go, bro. Oh, Charles, those are not my abs, brother. I do not have those abs. I got a dad bod, all right? And dad bods are in. Gail, welcome. New member. I think the tariffs are great to be on. Oh, son of a gun. I get that picture down. I don't do this. I think the tariffs are great, to be honest. And of course, a lot of these countries got on the phone afterward and begged him not to. Also, how about that revised up March jobs report? And for those who don't know what he's talking about, let's do it. Let's do it. By the way, the jobs report rose by more than expected. See that? Both the private sector report by ADP and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Boy, they're going to be so pissed if this happens. Well, it's happening, so they can get pissed right now, but damn. Let's do the PDF. Let's go down. All right. In March. Oh, right. 111. That was a revision down from January. So actually, yeah, I mean, there was revised down 34,000 for February. But I think I was talking about the ADP then, because I know it was ADP, right? Hold on, let me get the ADP report. I know what you're talking about. But both were higher anyway for people who don't know what it said today. Non-farm payrolls, 228. The unemployment rate stayed the same. The economic calendar, let me get that up so I can see the consensus, please. Employment situation, yeah, I knew it was a lot. So the consensus, guys, was only for 138,000 jobs this month. I'd say that it exceeded expectations. If you look, however, I mean, there's some things that I would really like to see. Look, the labor force participation rate still below 63, hasn't been 63 since Donald Trump was president. The more important, arguably, but less cited for sure, employment population rate ratio, 59.9. Again, shy of where I'd like to see it, but it's been a couple of months. Give it a second. Socialist transportation, warehousing, although still healthcare was number one. Notice, however, crew, where's the government sector? Right? The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports before Biden gave Trump the reins was pretty clear. You had healthcare and government driving, and that was basically it, brother. You weren't even able at this point. Where's the media? Where's the media? Come on. That's medium small. There it is. Investors, media. And the consensus for ADP was, bear with me, 120,000. So that exceeded it too by 35,000. But also the prior month, which was abysmal, 84,000 jobs, is an upward revision from 77,000. So again, headed in the right direction. Still a lot of work to go, but annual pay up 4.6%. Hello. All right, the employment situation report. I know I got to get the kid. I want to go back to that real quick, and then we'll get through the rest of the comments. This is private sector. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Average hourly earnings could have been better. The participation rate did technically tick up to 0.11 tenth of a percentage point. Would love to see it go higher than that. It's too low. Private payrolls, which is a big deal. 116, that was the consensus. Came in at, drumroll please, 209. So don't be surprised if you see Trump with a fact sheet saying domestic employment increased. Oh, and by the way, private sector increased, the government decreased. I mean, if I was him, I would do that hands down. I don't even know why he's not doing it. And the number of people who are not in the labor force unchanged, 5.9. It's way too high. It's people. Okay. So there it's at. Let me take one more glance, see if I missed anybody, because I know it's already after 3. That's crazy. Jay Bones got in late. You have any comments on the North Carolina Supreme Court race ruling that just came out? I didn't see it. Preparing for the show. Let's check it out. Let's go to news. Oh, you're talking. Oh, yes, I do. You're talking about the that they have to prove who they are. 65,000 votes. I thought you meant it was on the court itself. Oh, okay. Yeah, 65,000 voters in the state of North Carolina have been basically issued a demand proving who they are. And yeah, that's a good thing. Don't be surprised. Dude, okay, let's get to CBS. 15 days to prove eligibility. Good luck. All right. There we go. Da-na-na. All right. I don't even take Tylenol. The hell that's doing up there. Raleigh, in a new ruling Friday, the North Carolina Court of Appeals gave favor to Republican Jefferson Griffin, the candidate of the state Supreme Court, overturning the February ruling from the Wake County Superior Court. Wake County is just disgustingly liberal. It was once upon a time a Republican stronghold, but it is now a Democratic area, 65-35 kind of area. Trump did do better in it than I gave him a benchmark for in the state, but you know, yeah, I mean, right. The primary reason behind the vote ruling in a vote that went 2-1 in favor of the plaintiff because of the amount of incomplete voter registration votes that were cast in November. This is a rare win for Republicans. They don't usually get to do this once this is all said and done. This is why you vote, by the way, in your state Supreme Court elections. End of story. There you have it. 65,000 voters have 15 days to prove they're eligible. Otherwise, the votes will be tossed. And I'm telling you right now, if the votes are tossed, old Jefferson is going to win this race. Wow. Whoa. Okay. So Wake County stuffing ballots of people who were never really residents of the state of North Carolina in the first place. Okay, start there. Move on to the change of address flags that constantly get ballots sent out to addresses they no longer live at. Pretend with the media pretending then that doesn't happen. The votes cast by these purported voters are not to be included in the final count in the 2024 election for seat 6. Man, I gotta be honest with you. I can't believe they won this. I mean, look, the court is now Republican, but I mean, well, they were trying to stop that actually, but it's still a tall order to ask a judge to do something like this. And we have not seen multiple judges willing to put themselves out there like that. Okay. To wade into this territory, which they, courts have generally found is within the purview of the public. They don't like to mess with it. They really don't. Judge Hampton dissented, and he argued that voters up for debate did everything they were instructed to do. Their ballots were accepted. Their ballots were counted. The results were canvassed. None of these challenged voters was given any reason to believe their vote would not be counted on election day or included in the final tallies. That doesn't matter. Who canvassed them matters. And then also, their entire canvassing scams built off of fake voters. I mean, don't tell me. Absolutely. Changing the rules by which these lawful voters took part. I mean, you're calling them lawful voters. With all due respect, Your Honor. With all due respect. That's the entire point. You don't know that. You're making that up, which shows your ass, by the way. That immediately shows your ass. I know I gotta go. It's 3:12, and I gotta get my son. It's gonna rain again. I can't get this pool right, guys. Every time I go to get the pool right, it freaking rains. I gotta send Laura this Spartacus photo. So good. Hold on. Yeah, every time it freaking rains, and it messes with the pH level, which then messes with the salt. If they have more stabilizer, right? The wind carries mustard algae from the river. Gonna have to add more algicide because it's looking beautiful, and I don't want mustard algae in my pool. All right, so with that in mind, it's 3:13. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. This is interesting, and I got to tell you, Charles, or was it Charles? No, it wasn't Charles. It was, I want to get your name right, J-Bone 86. J-Bone 86. I'd like to take time to read this more, all right? Because I did see the headline, but I did not take a chance to read it. And frankly, I was a little bit surprised because courts are just they've been traditionally apprehensive when it comes to this stuff. Rectifying or remedying wrongs that were conducted, that were committed during the conducting of an election, except, of course, if you're a Democrat, then you can get a whole new election in the state of North Carolina, which one did and still lost, by the way. Lost by a larger number of votes than he lost the first time. Cool. All right, so I'll check it out. Again, don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Share them far and wide. The best place to follow us is right there. Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. If you are a member on YouTube or a supporter on Locals, we are reading on the book club Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Nations and Identities. Vincent Pecora is the title, right? Nations and Identities. Not a cheap book, so you don't have to buy it. We are reading every section in it, but you'll see we're reading it and then discussing it. So technically, you don't have to buy it. But, of course, it's going to make your experience better if you do. And you're not buying it from me. You can go to Amazon and get it, whatever. But it is a book that's frequently used in college courses. And because of that, it costs a lot of money. And I mean, it's a go-to. Nations and Identity is a go-to. Just like What is a Nation is a go-to. There's an excerpt from that in there as well. And Benedict Anderson, right? Managing Communities. But anyway, I'm getting carried ahead of myself. I'm getting carried away and ahead of myself. So we got to boogie here and kick rocks. Again, like the videos if you like them. The same with the Public Polling Project. Share it. Share it far and wide. I'm going to give a different link to you guys pretty soon where it is just the actual poster so you can see how far we are along with the fundraising effort and what we need left, okay? Right now, we're 20% of our goal. That's very nice. And that was done in like 1 week, guys. That was a week. After a slow going on the Public Polling Project, this kind of took off this week, and that's fantastic. Let's give you all a round of a hand. I'm serious. It's fantastic. Great work. All right. 3:16. What does my time flies by. All right. I will see you on the book club. And as usual, during the weekend, be safe, have fun, enjoy yourself, unwind, but don't do anything crazy and don't do anything that I would not do. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. I'll see you all soon.